Today, I'd like to describe some recent work on fairness issues that arise in the context of privacy-protected data. My work focuses on the challenge of protecting sensitive data, which I define as personal information whose misuse could cause harm. The typical scenario we consider is shown here. Respondents contribute their personal data and expect privacy protection. They trust the data curator to collect data and handle it responsibly. In particular, the curator governs the release of data or derived data products to analysts who want the most accurate insights to properties of the respondent population. Analysts may be well-intentioned, but we nevertheless consider them untrusted, in part because they often expect to publicize findings derived from the sensitive data. For this reason, we'd like to restrict the analyst to only seeing privacy-safe results. For example, if we use Uber, we become respondents because we have an account with Uber and Uber collects and stores detailed records about our trip. The city of Boston would like to study aggregate trends in this data, for example, to inform policy decisions. If Uber releases data to the city of Boston, it must ensure that individual activities cannot be recovered from the data. In this talk, I'll focus on another example, data collected by the Census Bureau. In this case, respondents are US residents completing their census forms. The Census Bureau needs to ensure individual privacy while publicly releasing sets of aggregate tabulations, which are widely used by social scientists, demographers, and policymakers. Privacy technology operates at the boundary between the curator and analyst, balancing the need to protect the individual with the need to share with the analyst accurate aggregate trends about the population of respondents. Many legacy privacy technologies have been shown to be vulnerable to subtle attacks, resulting in a series of high-profile exposures of sensitive personal data. In fact, the Census Bureau attacked some of its own 2010 data releases and found easy-to-execute attacks against a large fraction of the US population. In response to these threats, differential privacy has emerged as the leading model for privacy protection. It provides a rigorous, quantifiable privacy guarantee that can encourage participation by respondents. For the curators of sensitive data, it provides a uniquely reliable measure of privacy loss, allowing them to transform data and share it, confident that it will not be attacked and lead to unintended disclosures. Lastly, the privacy protection provided does not rely on the secrecy of the methods employed, which supports algorithmic transparency. The Census Bureau has adopted differential privacy to protect data collected as part of the 2020 census. As someone who's done years of research into differentially private algorithms, this was an exciting moment, and I was lucky to work as an advisor to the Census Bureau, helping them design their algorithms. But as I learned about the uses of privacy protected data at the census, I was also motivated to study the potential impacts of privacy protection. So while I feel that the adoption of differential privacy at the Census Bureau is a major step forward, we also have to be aware of the potential consequences of privacy protection in the important applications that census data is used for. In particular, disparities in treatment that could arise for certain groups. To explain this further, let's dive into the census example in a bit more detail. The Census Bureau collects information from residents and generates tables of population statistics. Generally, these population statistics count the size of demographically and geographically defined groups. Examples of population statistics include the number of senior citizens in a county, the number of school-age children in each school district, the number of voting age residents speaking a given foreign language in each voting district in the US. To protect privacy, the Census Bureau has always applied disclosure limitation methods to the statistics before releasing them publicly. To protect privacy, the statistics are transformed or distorted in some way, and therefore inaccuracies in the statistics are introduced. When differential privacy is used, we randomly perturb the statistics, adding random samples of noise to each statistic generally. Census data are used for all manner of important decisions. So we've studied a class of problems we call assignment problems, in which groups of people are assigned a resource or benefit using an assignment rule defined in terms of published population statistics. For example, approximately $6 billion of education funding is distributed to school districts in the US in proportion to the population of low-income school-age children in each district. Those population counts of children in each district determine the allocation of funds. Another really important assignment problem, the number of foreign language speakers in a voting jurisdiction is tested against a population threshold to determine whether ballots will be printed in a foreign language. Inaccuracy in public statistics has serious consequences for affected groups. They may receive less funding than they rightfully deserve, or even suffer disenfranchised voters because their district is misclassified. But we have to accept some degree of inaccuracy if we want to protect privacy. A central question of our work, however, is whether affected groups bear equally the burden of inaccuracy introduced by our privacy mechanisms. We performed an empirical study of these assignment disparities in the context of differential privacy. We considered 3 important assignment problems, tested both standard differentially private mechanisms and some more sophisticated ones, and we used public use census data, which was treated as ground truth for the purposes of our simulations. The noise added by common differentially private algorithms resulted in significant disparities, especially at stronger levels of privacy, which entail more noise. For example, in the assignment of educational funds, we witnessed inflation of allocations to smaller districts by a factor of 10 or more, and a compensating reduction in funding to larger districts. In the case of voting rights benefits, which involve classifying districts as deserving or not deserving of voting materials published in so-called minority languages, we witnessed large disparities in the rate of correct classification. Some districts are largely immune to noise and retain their benefits with high likelihood, while others end up incorrectly classified more than half the time. The Census Bureau is required to make an important social choice, balancing privacy against the accuracy of the public statistics it releases. Because this is such a high stakes trade-off, it's very important to have the most efficient privacy algorithms, and much research is focused on designing sophisticated algorithms that offer better accuracy for a fixed level of privacy. But one of the key takeaways from our work is that accuracy measures commonly used in the privacy community need to be expanded. The research community often targets aggregate accuracy, implicitly favoring a utilitarian goal. This would correlate to minimizing the total amount of funding that is misallocated. We could instead pursue a more egalitarian goal of making sure no group is impacted too badly. What can we do to remedy the disparities we witnessed? Notice that the public population statistics are typically used in the assignment rule as if they are true values, ignoring the fact that noise has been added. For the assignment of funding and voting rights benefits, we showed that we can mitigate unfairness by changing the assignment rule to account for the noise. This requires knowing something about the noise distribution and knowing that outside the census. But this is an important benefit of differential privacy, that the privacy protection does not rely or depend on the secrecy of the algorithms used. So for the first time, the census will be able to share the algorithms used for disclosure limitation, and it will allow the public the chance to analyze these potential impacts more accurately. And it could allow different assignment rules to be used. For example, for funds allocation, we showed that one can guarantee with high probability that no district is underfunded, essentially by overfunding everyone a little bit to account for the uncertainty in population counts. At a pretty conservative value of epsilon of 0.1, we'd have to increase overall funding by about 8%. These remedies could relieve disparities. but one of the challenges is whether they're feasible in the real world, where assignment rules are often written into law. Thank you. If you'd like to learn more about this problem and related fairness issues, please read our paper, Fair Decision Making Using Privacy Protected Data, and I've provided a few other sources that inform the Census Bureau's use of differential privacy.